I think Neymar should have taken massive rating decrease. 92 overall. I think he should be the best player in the game. Ooh, surprise for later in the video.
What's going on, people? It's Pigor with Pigor's Page coming right back at you. So this week FIFA has released their FIFA 22 top 22 rated players, and their FIFA 22 video game released this October 1st. And we wanted to take a look at it and do a little bit of a tier list to see how accurate EA was this year. Each year, EA never fails to disappoint us. They tend to do their ratings over a 3 to 5 year average, so there's a lot of time that players are living off their name. But today's tier list, we want to compare them to how the ratings should be this year based on the players played last year. Obviously, there were a few injured players, but out of the top 22, most players did play most game weeks last year. So it's going to give us a fair comparison to be able to see who really did come out on top, who's accurately rated, who's just there for their name, who's there because EA wanted to get a little more marketing dollars, and then there's some that are just you can't explain it. But please take a moment, if you do like the video, subscribe. It's a new channel. I want to see if people are interested. It would be really appreciated. Enjoy the video.
So today we're going to start off with the goalkeepers. So first of all, we got Ederson. Now, my only problem with Ederson is he's probably the most mistake-prone keeper I'm familiar with, but it's because he plays a riskier game than most. He does like to be more advanced. He's not necessarily the same sweeper keeper a Neuer would be. But he's an outlet at the back, similar to what a sweeper as a center back would be. And players are confident playing it to his feet, thus the 93 kick rating, which I believe is the highest rated out of all the goalkeepers. So I think Ederson is probably a perfect rating after finishing, the Premier League champions, runners-up at the Champions League. And I believe they got to the semifinals in the FA Cup, losing out to Leicester City, which were the eventual champions, obviously. Next up on the list is going to be Donnarumma. For Donnarumma, I think this is living off the hype of Euro 2020. Obviously, in Serie A last year, AC Milan did not have the best season. I think they kind of lived off a little bit of teams weren't performing as well, but Inter Milan really showed the rest of the league what it means to be a champion. Took home the Scudetto. So I think Donnarumma is really living off that Euro 2020, and I think this jump in rating is significant and a little too much because I really don't see this much in him. I definitely don't see the diving and reflex in the 90s. I can definitely see his kicking being 79. So I think this one is a little bit more of a EA marketing specialty trying to push the Euro 2020 results. Rather than giving an accurate rating based off the last 3 years of a player's performance. Next up on this list is going to be Alisson. I think that after last year, he had probably a David De Gea-esque collapse last year, but a lot of that had to do with Virgil van Dijk being injured. I think this one's a little bit living off the past. With the season last year, I would have seen him probably drop a couple more spots, but I think the 89 it's pretty close to where it should be. I would probably go with an 88, 87 on Alisson. Next up is Neuer. This one is Bayern Munich. They're obviously, in my opinion, they're probably the best team in Europe right now. But I don't think that's got much to do with the goalkeeper as much as it got to do with them playing that 60% possession, playing up in the offensive third of the match for 60% of the game. And I really think Neuer, because of the type of keeper he is, being a sweeper keeper, really is. But I think this one, it's generous. I don't think Neuer's still a 90 overall rated. I don't think he's the best keeper in the world. He has aged. He has lost a little bit of his athleticism, which is important with the way that he plays goalkeeper. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one with living off the past. Bayern's been successful, but I don't think it's been on the back of Neuer. Obviously, he's had some injuries over the last few years as well, so they're not really taking the last 3 years into account. Next on the list, Ter Stegen. Barcelona, I think, in La Liga on Ter Stegen, as well as having Messi there, leading the league. But I think this one is a bit of an EA marketing specialty. I don't think Ter Stegen's one of the best keepers in the world. I never have thought he's one of the best keepers in the world. I watch a good amount of Barcelona matches. I don't really see what people are seeing. I see him as a great keeper. I don't see him as a world-class keeper, such as an Oblak. So I think this one is slightly off. I'd probably put Ter Stegen in 89. But next up on the list is Oblak. I really do think Atletico Madrid had a great season. Obviously, they didn't do too great in the Champions League, which I bet they would have wanted to do a little bit better. But winning La Liga over Real Madrid and Barcelona is always a grand accomplishment. It's similar to knocking off Manchester United in their heyday in the Premier League. So Atletico Madrid, great season. Oblak, probably the fact that they're the best defensive team in Europe, had one of the best defensive records last year. 91, I honestly believe that's the perfect rating. I think he's probably the best goalkeeper in the world right now. So I'm going to go with that's a perfect rating. He should be in 91. Next on the list is Courtois with Real Madrid. Again, this is another one that I didn't watch Real Madrid last year. I watched a lot more Barcelona and La Liga. I didn't really watch Real Madrid outside of the Champions League. Um, he did not perform well in the Champions League, but from his time at Chelsea in the Premier League when I watched him a lot, he's an unbelievable shot stopper. Um, he's maybe not the best distributor in the league. He's not going to be the sweeper keeper that Neuer is. But when it comes to pure reflexes, diving, saving, he was one of the best I'd seen in a long time at his age, and the fact that I believe he's like 6'4", massive, massive keeper with his ability to have that level of athleticism. I think this one's going to be slightly off because of Real Madrid's season not being good. I really think that with the way that EA penalizes other teams that don't get a major trophy, Real Madrid should be put into the same category where players should be put down a few ratings when the team isn't successful as prior seasons. So I think it's somewhat living off the past, slightly off, but I didn't see enough. But I definitely think it's higher than where it should be given where Real Madrid stands right now. If they had an Oblak, I don't think people would be questioning their defensive capabilities, even with the new center back pairing. I think that a keeper like that could bring two center backs and make them better, rather than a Courtois. I think is going to be relying on trying to adjust, get a little bit of chemistry with the new center backs with Alaba. The Virgil van Dijk, the center backs here. The only center back rated in the top 22, which I think is probably accurate. Ramos is probably a little bit old now to kind of receive this rating. So I think this is accurate. I honestly think it's a perfect rating. They took into account that Liverpool had a bad year. He didn't play, obviously, with a torn ACL, played maybe 5-6 games last season, so he did miss out a lot of it. So he did take the rating hit for that. I do think that the physicality is a little low at 84, but outside of that, I think this is a pretty accurate rating for Virgil van Dijk. Casemiro, I have noticed that they rated Casemiro as an 89 CDM. Casemiro last season didn't really play as a CDM. Modric and Kroos really actually held a lot deeper, and Casemiro was the center midfielder going forward for Real Madrid on a lot of occasions, and you'll see that on the advanced statistics. He had a lot more expected goals than the other two. Both two are really more of shot creators rather than shot makers, and Casemiro really does get up the pitch and shoot. But in my opinion, if they are going off that center defensive midfield rating, he's one of the best in the world in that position. But if they were to give him the center midfield positioning, which is probably more accurate given his season last year, I don't actually think he's an 89 overall. I think he's maybe an 87, 88. Obviously, with defending and physicality being a little less more important, and having better passing and maybe a little bit better dribbling being more important in those positions. But I definitely think they're a little bit low on a shooting statistic at 73. He's got a rocket, so I really think that it's slightly off for Casemiro, just because I don't think he's a CDM anymore. But if we're going off just purely rating, I think I might put him in perfect rating. I do think he's the best in that position in the world, maybe outside of Conte. So I definitely agree with that one. Kimmich, I want to say it's a perfect rating because he should be an 89 overall. But the problem with Kimmich's rating is if you look, he's a 70 pace, 73 shooting, 86 passing, 84 dribbling, 83 defending, 79 physical. None of those scream world-class player or an 89 overall. It's not really a card I think I'd even use on a team because it's really just not an exciting card. He's not massive to be able to really command the midfield. He's really that modern Thiago type 6 where he's more about positioning, passing, being in the right place at the right time, distributing from deep, kind of arriving late into the box, scoring that way, obviously with them unbelievable crosses. I do think Kimmich deserves an 89 overall rating, but I think that the passing at 86 with his level of crossing and distributing is very low. I think he should actually reach the 90s, which would then give him the 89 justification a little more. But outside of the individual ratings, the actual overall is perfect. I think this is well done by EA. Conte at 90. I think this is a little bit of Champions League bias and Chelsea not really having that player last year that people could point to and go, that was the best player. A lot of people, from what I heard in a lot of circles I was around, they were all saying Conte, Conte, Conte. But when you watch the matches, he's a great force in the midfield. He runs non-stop, but he's not the best passer of the ball. He's not the best dribbler of the ball. He can't really shoot. For center defensive midfield, it's good, but I don't think he's a 90 overall. I really think Conte should be an 89. If I were to choose like a 6 to, change a team, such as say United needed a 6 that would really take them Premier League champions, I would take Casemiro over Conte. I would take Kimmich over Conte. So I don't really see the push with how he's the best player in the world. I think he's a little bit beyond his prime. And I think, if anything, I might actually just put him living off the past more. I don't think the rating's wrong as much as I think he really is living off the past in his name. Obviously, he's had some great seasons. He's probably the best center midfielder over the last 5 years in the Premier League, outside of De Bruyne. But all in all, after last season, I didn't think he was great. I thought Chelsea was an average team that just did very well in the Champions League. Really picked it up at the end of the Premier League season with their defense, and I really don't think Conte was the one that was solidifying that as much as I do think it was the center backs moving to a back 5 and having 3 at the back with a 2 wing back formation. So I'm going to say Conte's living off the past, but let's move on to De Bruyne. De Bruyne, I think, is low. When you watch this player, it's kind of like when you watch Messi. You see him playing, and you want to be like, what's so great, what's so special, and then you count to 30 and they make a pass where you look at it and think, I could never do that in a million years. There's no chance I could perform that. There's no chance anyone I've ever seen could do that. That's something that, it's a gift from God. It's just, his passing is probably the best in the world right now. Pirlo-esque, Paul Scholes-esque in their heyday, just, you don't understand. But I actually think he should be 92. I think De Bruyne has only gotten better. I think the lack of game time is probably why I'll say it's a perfect rating, because he didn't play all 38 games last season. I don't even think he was Man City's best player, honestly. I personally think that was probably closer to Ruben Diaz. But De Bruyne should be 91 at least, maybe a 92. I'm going to give him a perfect rating on the 91 with being injured last year.
So that's part 1 of the FIFA 22 top 22 overall rated players. If you're interested in seeing part 2, please like, subscribe the video. It would be really appreciated. Part 2 will come out next week, and we'll see if I get a little more controversial in the second half. Thank you. Have a good one.